So, today's session is sort of a session 2 of how to jam, really. But there's going to be a whole host of other stuff within that you can take away from it if you feel that you know fully well how to jam. Last session, we looked at kind of following the chords, really, and the journey that takes you on. And today, we're going to focus in on the melody a bit, as well as some other bits and bobs, and we're going to look at different ways of approaching creating a melody in a sort of a jamming situation, or you could apply it to even composing if you like, because it works at many different levels. One, on the level of how do you even start to write a melody or play a melody, and that's something I think I've probably neglected in these sessions sometimes, because I just presumed that you guys all feel really comfortable just playing a melody, which isn't necessarily the case at all, is it really? And actually there's a little bit of mystery and magic behind that and just creating a melody. So hopefully I'm going to sort of demystify that a bit. Also, when it comes to making your melodies better, when it's improvising or writing, I'm hopefully going to offer some inspiration around that, some different ways of looking at it, particularly from a rhythmic aspect. We'll get stuck into it. First off, we're going to learn the chord sequence that we'll be jamming to, all right? So even if you just learn these chords, it means that you can just play along in the most basic sense and enjoy. I'm working with another 2-chord sequence because it seems to really work for these little sessions, and all it is a D minor 7 and an A minor, which are in bar chords. I'm going to show you a very simplistic way of doing it. If you're doing it in bar chords, we're going to have a bar on the 5th fret on the A string down to the E, with 2nd finger 6th fret on the B and 3rd finger 7th fret on the D. Okay, that's our D minor 7. That's where the chord sequence starts. And where the chord sequence finishes is with an A minor, which is 1st finger across all the strings, 3rd finger 7th fret A string, little finger 7th fret D string. Okay, so they're the bar chords. But if you want to play the open chords, which I've got tabbed out for you, which we'll get to in a minute, then we want our 2nd finger on the G string 2nd fret. And our 1st finger is going to bar, so covering the B and the E on the 1st fret. Okay, you can strum from the D string. Okay, and that's our nice little D minor 7 there. And then to an A minor, should be a relatively familiar chord. It's your 1st finger, 1st fret B string, 3rd finger, 2nd fret G string, 2nd finger, 2nd fret D string. Okay, we're literally going to be switching between those chords. Quick recap of the bar chord one. 1st finger is going to bar across the 5th fret from the A string to the E string, 2nd finger 6th fret B string, 3rd finger 7th fret D string, and the A minor barring all the strings, 3rd and little finger on the 7th fret A and D respectively. That's our A minor. Okay, so I'm just going to get that up in the tab, I think, to make sure that all made a nice bunch of sense for you. And I'm going to show you the chords up here if you want to play the open chords. Okay, cool. So we're going to be using that as our sequence underneath everything that we do here. So if you want to get super comfortable with those chords, that would be a really great thing to do. Now, the wonderful thing about this sequence as well is last week we were talking about the whole sort of how to know what key stuff is in, all right? We talked about majors and minors, and actually you can usually take the 1st chord and it will tell you what it is. Now, in the case of this, our D minor 7 to our A minor, actually this could be in either A minor or it could be in D minor. Well, it's totally up to you, which is hopefully a nice example of where, you know, the little simplistic rule doesn't actually work, and where we have to go back to basically just using our ear and crucially being a bit confident to explore. So maybe you try using A minor stuff and maybe you don't like it, so you switch to the D minor or vice versa. Now, first off, let's just get stuck in to the rhythm before we get too tripping over the theory kind of thing. Now, how we've got it written out here is like this, which might look a little bit, well, not scary, but a little bit confusing. Basically, what's happening is we're playing this, or not that even, we're going... Okay, lots of space because we can build on it as we go. Now, essentially, what's happening is we're thinking in sixteenths, all right? That means that we're counting 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... So to get this strumming pattern, you want to have that motion going already. 1E and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... Okay? And that means that we end up strumming down on the 1, E and A. Okay? All right. Now, because of the way that we're having such a sparse strumming pattern, what will probably happen is you'll have a longer strum down and you'll wait there and then come back up. All right. That's totally fine, but it actually can be really great to have a constant 16th pattern. Like that, so that you can keep that mechanism and flow going through. So it's based on 16ths, but ultimately you can just listen to the rhythm and just get it going. So what's going to happen now, just to make sure everyone's got that nice foundation of what we're going to be playing to, I'm just going to play the sequence round and round, D minor 7 and A minor. I'm going to switch to the bar chord sometimes as well. I'm just going to play that rhythm so we can all get in a bit of a zone with it. And then we'll get stuck into the melody stuff. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And A minor. D minor 7. So you can hear those 16 muted strums that when you're feeling a bit more confident, and 4 Rihanna, 3 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 and 4 Rihanna. Fantastic. So that's the chord sequence and that's what we're working with here. Now, what we're talking about though is we're talking about melody first off. Now, I'm probably going to focus in most of all on how to create a melody and then how to develop it, okay? But actually, if anything comes to mind as we go through here that you guys are really keen to know, then, you know, you can just ask. You can even just ask in the chat, actually. That can be a nice way to do it too. So I've written a little melody here for you to work with already, and then we're going to build on it as we go. But the first thing for me to say is actually how I created this melody. That's the best thing to say, isn't it, to start with? Now, I've just worked out what notes work with these chords. Now, I could have done it in the first way that we looked at last week, where I took the chords that I'm using and I take those notes. Okay, so those notes that I just played are all the notes from the chord. So essentially, if I was in a jamming situation or working with other musicians or even just working on my own, I could just take those chords and I could pick a melody out from those notes. And in fact, the melody that I have written pretty much does that bar one note. But what I've done actually, and this is the way I tend to work, is I've worked out the key and then I have used the relevant scale. Now, as I said, it doesn't quite conform so nicely to what the first chord is. Actually, it kind of fits nicely into an A minor, really, rather than a D minor. So I've found my A minor scale. Now, how I've worked that out is through a little bit of trial and error. So I tried D minor first, and actually it doesn't sound quite so nice. So then I tried A minor, and yeah, that sounds great. So there's a degree of needing to know our scales a little bit. Now, for A minor scale, I can go over that a bit later if you want, but we're going to sort of keep ploughing on. So these notes for this melody are completely taken from the A minor scale, all right? They're not from anywhere else. Those are the notes that I've used, and I've chosen these notes from it. And it sounds like this. 3, 4. Okay, roughly that, going round and round and round. I'm going to teach you how to play that exactly, and then we're going to build on it. Now, what's integral to this melody is rhythm, all right? And when we tend to noodle, or noodle, that's a technical musical term, it really should be, that should be on the syllabus for GCSE music, I reckon. When we're just jamming around, trying to create stuff, actually, quite often, we don't focus on rhythm within melody, and we can get really hung up on going and just notes. But actually, if we think about the melodies that we know and love, probably the key elements in them are rhythmic rather than actually note sort of range. Quite often it will just be 3, 4 notes, and it's about the rhythm. So this melody that I've written is really trying to demonstrate that as much as possible. So let's, in fact, I'm just going to let it play round for you guys so you can hear it in a little bit of a loop. And what we have is we have some super short notes. Cool. Okay, so hopefully you can hear how sort of funky and short those notes are, and that's all about our left hand. Okay, let's just have a look at what that is. Resolving back to the A, Chris, not to the G. I don't quite know what you mean there, Carl. What do you mean, that I'm playing it differently to how it's written?
No, what I mean is where you've got it tabbed, you've got it showing going back to a G note, but it's actually going back to the A, isn't it? So it's resolving back to the A on the second turn.
I've got it showing a G. Oh yeah, well done. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Carl. There you go. You just paid for your session right there, buddy. That's great. Great. Okay, so let's just learn it note by note, and then I'll get stuck into the rhythm bit as well. Now it's written out perfectly. So I'm starting off with my second finger on the 6th fret here, okay, and then we've got a first one ready on the 5th fret to go back to, all on the B string, okay. So we're playing that 6, and then we're going 5, 5. All right. So melodically, if you like, we're going, which really doesn't sound much, but when we start to bring in rhythm, okay, we start to bring it to life. And even just in that tiny little example, that shows us how cool it is to really think rhythmically when we're jamming or composing, when we're writing melodies, because it says one thing, but that says a totally different thing. So how do we do that? Well, we squeeze and we release, all right? So we let that first one, the 6, ring into the 5, and then we immediately let go of the 5 and then squeeze it back down again and let go again. So it's killed instantly. Okay, that contrast of the long 6 to the short 5s is really nice. Okay, and hopefully the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that actually that then brings that first note of the chord or rhythm into the melody. So we get that together. Okay, so it's sort of blending with those chords a bit. All right, and then we're going to the G string 5th fret with our first finger, and we're hammering from 5 to 7 with our third finger. And then we go to 5 on the B for the next bar. Okay, now the second part of the melody does exactly the same, but that last note isn't the 5 on B, it's 7 on D, as Carl perfectly pointed out for us as well. Okay. Cool. So give it a go. In fact, I'll just let it play through. That can be quite helpful. Lovely. Okay, cool. So hopefully you're able to sort of play that a little bit roughly anyway. Try and focus on it in 2 different sections. You've got the nice short notes at the beginning. Okay, even just get comfortable with that first. And then the hammer on to the note on the beginning of the bar. We play on the 4th beat for the hammer on, and then the 1st beat for the 5 or the 7. So 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Cool. Okay. So you can actually kind of mix that up with the rhythm as well if you're feeling a little bit adventurous. Or can just kind of mix it up in a sort of a John Frusciante style kind of way of playing as well, if you so fancy. But that is our melodic example. So hopefully you can understand a little bit of how I've created that as well. But if we see this as sort of reflecting on when we're jamming with people, we've looked at how we've worked out the key, but actually quite often when we're jamming with people as well, we might be jamming to a song or someone else is holding the melody. So if we see this melody as something that's already there, maybe there's one guitarist playing the rhythm, going, and then there's another guitarist playing, or perhaps the singer is going, and that's the kind of the melody, the vocal melody. So we need to understand then what we do on top of that to sort of develop it. It could be like a little guitar solo that you've got, or maybe you're just doing something with it. Now, there's 1,000,001 things that we can do, obviously, to make it more interesting, or there's no rights or wrongs, but here's a few little tips to get us going before we start jamming, all right? The first one is a favourite of mine, which is triplets, okay? Which are an immediate and fantastic thing to put into, I don't know, I squeeze them into absolutely everything, but they're just a wonderful thing to put in that sort of go against a melody unless there's triplets within it already specifically, and they just wash across nicely of everything that's going on. Now, to understand what a triplet is, it's sort of squeezing 3 into 1 or 3 into 2. So if you're a mathematician, it would, and we talked about this the other week, I think, it would mean that we're going 1.333 is equal to 1. The best way, though, is just to hear what they sound like, all right? You should really recognise them. It's kind of going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let me put it into context and let it play for you. So here's some triplets going round and round. Okay, so that is something that can be quite tricky to feel, but it's a really fantastic thing to be confident with, because in any situation of improvising or composing or writing with other people, going to triplets can be a really sort of fail-safe way of, I don't know, just opening up and sounding like you're part of it, but then also different from it. So I would suggest if you're not familiar with triplets, just get comfortable with even doing it rhythmically. That's why I've written it in a really simplistic way of just 5s on the E string. And then going up to 8 on the E, all right? And then the second phrase, I'm just going down to 3 on the E string. You could also just play 8 on the B if you'd rather. Okay, so we're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, or alternatively, as I said, you could go. All right, so we're going to jam all these together in a second, by the way. But ultimately, you can take that very lovely rhythmic device and you can make it sound very vocal and very beautiful, even just using a few notes like that. For example, sliding up to that 5 is going to make it come to life. All right, now if we blend those melodies together. This sounds really nice, and those triplets can apply into so many different situations. All right, I think that's plenty to work with there for a moment. What we're going to do is I'm just going to play the chords around for you guys. Okay, and I'll leave you with those phrases to experiment with and play with yourself. Now, I've deliberately not gone, oh, here's a bunch of scales to work with, here's the A minor scale to work with, because I think what's really nice here is if we can work on developing these ideas, all right? Because in a jam situation, as we said quite often, there's like a vocal melody to work with or whatever, rather than just thinking about scales and stuff. We've actually got to come from something. So use this first melody as like our vocal melody, and use that second little phrase using the triplets as a sort of embellishment. I'll play the chords round, I'll just let you experiment and give it a go and give it a little play. Here we go. I'll leave it up for you as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lovely, really great to see so many of you jamming around there. So yeah, triplets. Let's focus in on that as a thing to work with, because as I say, they can apply in so many situations. It's really nice actually if you can listen to music. Well, I'm sure you all listen to music, but when you're listening to music and try and fit triplets in, okay, and it's trying to get these threes across the four. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's a really wonderful feel that we're all quite familiar with hearing, but actually they can be quite hard to play sometimes until we really sort of practice that rhythm. So it might be nice to sort of detach from the guitar and just trying to tap those rhythms. I got really obsessed with. I'm a dashboard in the car drummer, by the way. I'm sure there's many of us there, but a great place to practice your triplets. All right, especially when in traffic jams, when not obviously driving. Bum 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 bum, but it's really just great to sort of get it throughout the day of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, to really get it embodied and embedded, so that when you are jamming, you can easily pull out those triplets. So let's look at some other examples of using those little triplets for you. I'm going to give you quite a simple one first of all, a really small development. All right, so this is just starting to break out of always starting the second and fourth bar with one note. So here we've got 3, 4. All right, nice and simple, just a tiny little development as an idea of how you might want to develop that little melody. But the big one that I really wanted to show you guys is this, and it's completely and utterly scalic. All right, we're walking down the A minor pentatonic scale, but it sounds more interesting than just going up and down the scale because we're doing it with triplets. We end up with this. Sounds melodic, and it's not because of the notes, it's because we're doing something rhythmically that sort of resonates with the sound. In fact, I'm just going to put it on loop for a little second so you can get comfortable with hearing that, just round and round, what that sounds like. To hear that triplet rhythm. And the idea is that 1 is stronger, so the whole counting thing is kind of important because it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Cool. Okay, so let me just walk you through how to play that exactly. Note for note. Now, as I said, it's working through the A minor pentatonic, so if you know that scale, it's going to help you out a little bit. We start off with our little finger, and remember we're working in sets of 3 here, okay? So our first note is 8, then we go down to the 5, and then we go down to the 8 on B, okay? So we're just working in 3s. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm strong on 1, a little softer on 2 and 3. Okay, that's what will bring it to life, all right? Making that 1 a little bit stronger. 1, 2, 3. All right. Then we go back 1 step, all right? So we start now on 5 on the E, and then we go to 8, 5 on the B. So that's another set of 3, so we make 1 much more strong, all right? This technique gets used a lot in little sort of scalic passages of 4 as well, or 8, but 3 is particularly nice. So 2 sets of 3 for this first bar. We're going 8, 5, 8, and then the second set of 3, 5, 8, 5. Now to make it come to life, make each one of the 3 strong. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so rather than 1, right, we want. All right, there's a real world of difference there from going to going. All right, it's got flow, it's got movement, and that makes our melody sound awesome rather than, I don't know, not so awesome. Right, here we go. So let's move on to that second bar. Okay, now we're starting another set of 3. We're going to go back to the 8 on B, to the 5 on 1, and to the 7 on G. Okay, remember making 1 nice and strong. Okay, then we go back to the 5 on B, and then 7/5 on G. Okay, so that's 4 sets of 3 so far. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, what if you're anything like me, what you might experience here is that you get really frustrated with the pattern and you just give up sort of halfway through and start noodling something else. I'd really suggest that you sort of be a little bit disciplined with these little phrases, because what you'll find is they'll open up 1,000,001 different phrases. So really try and nail this sort of scalic way of going down a scale, because it will help break kind of old patterns and loops that you might be stuck in. All right, so I'm just going to quickly build up to where we were from before. So 8/5/8, going back 1 step, 5/8/5, and again go back 1 step, 8/5/7, back 1 step, 5/7/5. Okay, then we get to the third bar and we now have again back 1 step, 7/5/7. Okay. And then we're going to repeat that and then finish with 7 on the D. All right, it's a nice little rhythmic pattern, but ultimately it's melody. Once we've mastered that, once we're doing a nice emphasis on 1, we can start to bring it to life a little bit. Okay, whenever we're creating melodies, we can embellish them in 1,000,000 different ways. It doesn't always have to be a different note. We can change the rhythm, but we can also just change how we articulate the note. So maybe we slide into them, maybe we make one just a tiny bit shorter. Okay, so the posh word for that is staccato, isn't it? You might want to just come off the notes a little bit more. Mix it up. Cool. So playing that over the top of those chords can be really, really nice. Now again, you're going to find that a lot easier if you can practice those triplets when you're listening to music anyway. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Cool. Okay, so we're going to do one last little example, but I think we will just have a little jam with that for a second to let us do some playing. So again, I'm going to play the chords. You're welcome to play the chords with me. And then it's totally up to you if you want to play the original melody that we had. Maybe you just want to use these triplet ideas that we're working with. Or maybe the... Okay, it's totally up to you. I'll leave the tab up, I think, because I think that can be quite helpful for you guys working through it. And we shall get going. Here we go then. And by the way, if you've got any specific things about melody or whatever in this, or jamming or anything, then just pop it in the chat and we'll squeeze it in at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice, lovely to see everyone jamming out there. Cool. Okay, let's have a little recap before we move on. I think. Right, we have covered the chords. We've looked at them open. We've got them tabbed out there. We've looked at the bar chords as well. Talked about how it's all based around 16ths as well. Okay, so that 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... Okay, and that's really nice and easy to get your head around, I think. And then we've looked at the first melody, which I'm kind of trying to give to you as almost like a vocal melody that we might be working with, which was the... Then the... Okay, and then we've looked at then playing on top of that or embellishing that. So that might be taking a bit of a guitar solo in a normal song, and working with the melodies and chords. And what I'm offering to you today is the idea of working with triplets, which was spreading 3 across 2 in this case actually. So 2 beats where we go 1, 2, we've got 1, 2, 3. And then the 3 and 4, 3, 4, we've got 1, 2, 3 again. And that's when we looked at this. Alright, then we made some little embellishments on that. And then we looked at a nice little scalic phrase, alright, but we put them into triplet patterns. So again, playing the 3 within 2. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Which hopefully you guys are all kind of able to play to some degree anyway. And as I said, it's a really great thing just to sort of work through that you can apply to different songs. Now, the last little example that I'm going to throw at you is where we mix the 2 together. So we sort of reference the melody. Okay, now this is a great thing to do when we're jamming, and it might seem sort of a bit obvious, but actually I often gets overlooked, and I certainly forget to do it when I'm jamming as well. So it's the idea of sort of referencing the melody that we hear. So you'll often hear this in guitar solos on pre-composed and recorded songs where a little bit of the melody is thrown in, but it's a bit of an embellishment and a development. So this is what I've got written out for you as your example. Okay, which is it here? Yes, it is. So here we're going. All right, and then we're doing our little triplet again after our... Okay, so we've got this little melodic theme of the coming through on each bar. This might be for the slightly more advanced players, by the way. So not that you can't give it a go if you're a super beginner, but please don't feel frustrated if you're struggling with this. So that's at the beginning of each bar. So that's our little reference. Now on 2 of the bars, we're still throwing in the 5 to 7. Okay. However, at the end of the second, I need to zoom out a little bit, don't I? At the end of the second and 4th bar, we're throwing in the triplet again. So okay, and that's a really lovely place to be with your melodic playing, where you're referencing a melody that's in the song or a little riff that might appear with the chords, but then you're finding your own thing, which in this case is using triplets, which are really great fun to use. Okie doke. I think I'll just let that play around in a loop so you guys can hear that exactly and see it played out as well. I think that's quite a helpful little thing to have. Here we go. Cool. Okay, so then if you want to develop it further, you might want to call upon that little scale it run elsewhere. So, sorry. And just sort of blend them up as much as you wish, really. Excellent. All right, so let's just finish off with a nice little jam there. What I'm gonna do is let the melody play, and I'll play the chords underneath, I think, and then you guys can just solo and improvise away, but leaving the melody there so that you've got something to work with, because I think that's a really sort of top thing to be doing when we're jamming. So I'll let the computer play the melody, and I'll play the chords on top. And well, up to you guys what you do, really. You could completely ignore everything I've said and just play the same licks over and over again if you want, which is probably what I would be doing if I was in this session, because I'm not so good at taking advice. Cool, here we go then. Let's hear how it sounds. I'll let the melody play. Oh no, it should give us a little click first. Please shout if or wave if the audio is sounding weird. Ooh. And I've done the wrong one. We can do that. There we go. There we go. Lovely. I hope you enjoyed that little final jam session. I hope it sort of pulled it together for you all a little bit.